Good afternoon, everybody. So thanks everybody for making the time to attend our third ever monthly meetup. Before I begin my introduction, I'd just like to express my gratitude for getting to reside and work on the unceded territory of the Snayaks, the Silks, the Tanaha, and the Secchi peoples. For those who may not know, my name is Camille LeBlanc, and I'm Living Lakes Canada's Lake Blitz Program Coordinator. I just wanted to also start by saying a thank you to all of our amazing Lake Blitz volunteers that have joined us today and for all of the work you've done so far to gather data on a lake you love. Together, you have gathered over 600 observations on 120 lakes from across Canada, which is such an amazing accomplishment. I'd like to also welcome those who may be new to the Lake Blitz program and these meetings. We hope that you enjoy learning lots during these sessions and even feel inspired to join our network of volunteers in 2023. Of course, we couldn't do the Lake Blitz or any of our work without the support of our funders and partners. So big thanks to RBC and TD Friends of the Environment Foundation for their financial support, and our prize donors, Lush Cosmetics, David's Tea, Earth Rangers, and Kicking Horse Coffee for our Lake Biodiversity Photo Challenge, which concluded last week. We'd also like to thank our project partners, Water Rangers and Earth Rangers, and Aqua Action for helping us start this program, and to all of the many lake stewardship groups from across Canada that are helping to get the word out about this program. A big thank you to everybody for your collaboration and support. So here's a quick overview of our session today. I'll start with my intro, a welcome, and some program updates, and then I'll pass it over to our three amazing speakers. Joining us from BC, we have Marie Mccallum, project assistant from BC Lake Stewardship Society. We'll also be joined by Bonnie Hoyt-Hallett. I hope I said your name right there, Bonnie, and Teresa Gainville from from the New Brunswick Alliance of Lake Associations. These speakers will offer some valuable insights into their work and provide an outlook on how different provinces are working to promote lake stewardship and monitoring in their communities. We'll then move into a Q&A period while the presentations are rolling. If you have any questions that come up, just enter them into the chat, and Sophie will read them out during our question period at the end. For those who don't know Sophie, she is Living Lakes Canada's Lakes Program Coordinator and will be helping us today with managing the chat and also supporting you with any tech issues to the best of her ability that might come up. During the question period, if you prefer to unmute and ask your question, then you can do that. You just have to press the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen, and I'll welcome you to unmute and you can ask your question. But just a note that this meeting is being recorded, so if you don't want to be recorded speaking, then you can ask your question just in the chat. We'll do our best to get to everyone's questions, and any that we can't get to, we'll get back to you over email. And for those who are watching this recording after the fact, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me at lakeblitz@livinglakescanada.ca. So for some of you who aren't familiar, the National Lake Blitz is an entry-level citizen science program that works to equip, train, and support volunteers to gather simple yet crucial data on their lakes all across Canada. You don't need a degree or any technical training to gather data as a Lake Blitz volunteer. All you need is a thermometer, a camera, and a lake you care about and would like to help steward. This program really focuses on lowering the barriers to becoming a community scientist by providing equipment, instructions, and ongoing support from our Lake Blitz team. Lake Blitz volunteers, they gather data related to climate change-driven impacts on lakes, such as rising water and air temperatures, invasive species encroachment, and also doing some wildlife monitoring. Every volunteer receives a Lake Blitz kit that has everything you need to do your monitoring. So that includes a thermometer for gathering temperatures, instructions in a field guide, and then also data cards for entering your data over the sampling season, and also resources for if you have questions or any stumbling blocks that come with using technology or doing lake monitoring. The goal of the Lake Blitz is to empower individuals to fill the water data gap in Canada so that we can better understand the state of our lakes and build a national awareness on climate change impacts to lakes in Canada. Now, these monthly meetups are really our chance to connect more with our volunteers and the general public and provide additional opportunities for learning from our partner groups across Canada. So since this is a national campaign, it can be hard for us to feel connected as a team. And we know that feeling connected to a group as well as to the lake you're monitoring is an important aspect of encouraging volunteers to carry on doing this work. We also understand that the world of lake monitoring is vast and oftentimes complex. So through these talks, we hope to make this information more accessible and provide opportunities for you to connect with professionals in their field to help you explore your curiosities and build your knowledge, as well as explore additional resources and other volunteer opportunities. So on to today's topic. Today's topic is lake limnology and stewardship. So limnology is the study of inland waters and how these different systems interact within their drainage basins and with the atmosphere. So inland waters can include both fresh and saline, such as lakes, streams, rivers, and groundwater. By having a better understanding of these environments, it makes it easier to predict patterns of changes and impacts caused by things like human disturbances and climate change. Lake stewardship is about working together to protect our lakes to keep them healthy for future generations. So as human impacts such as development, agriculture practices, pollution, and climate change continue to grow, understanding our freshwater ecosystems and promoting stewardship in our communities has never been more important. It's often said that data drives decision-making. Therefore, by collecting data on the impacts of climate change, such as rising temperatures, invasive species, algae blooms, communities can better advocate for the protection of their lakes. Groups like BC Lake Stewardship Society and the New Brunswick Alliance of Lake Associations are doing this work to protect the health of lake ecosystems in their province by educating and empowering their community so that these individuals and groups can become the next generation of lake stewards. So we are really looking forward to offering more of these sessions. Our next talk is focused on environmental education and will feature speakers from BC and Ontario who specialize in providing accessible nature-based education programs to families, educators, and communities. So that will take place on September 29th from 12 to 1:15 p.m. Pacific time. So mark your calendars. So same time as this, we'll be having another session on September 29th. Mark it on your calendars for sure. It's going to be a good one. And a couple of reminders here. So you can watch all of the past meetups at lakeblitz.livinglakescanada.ca. These past topics include wildlife monitoring and invasive species monitoring, really great presentations that present some other awesome opportunities for additional volunteering if you're really into learning more about wildlife or invasive species. And for those of us who are monitoring, we only have 3 more monitoring days left. So one more for August and then 2 more in September. So be sure to get out there and collect your data. Even if you've missed a few days, I definitely encourage you to go and continue to collect data. And be sure to enter any data that you've already collected that might be on your data card at the Lake Blitz observation form at lakeblitz.livinglakescanada.ca. So it looks like I have a little bit of time here to kind of go through the data entry protocol for those who, maybe are a little bit unfamiliar. Maybe you haven't had a chance to see that yet. Can you see my browser here, Sophie, with the Lake Blitz? Okay, fantastic. So you just head to lakeblitz.livinglakescanada.ca and you're going to click the first blue button, submit your monitoring results. So make sure that you have your data card ready and also you have your photos organized, you know what you're going to be entering for each day. Since you'll be doing this after the fact, you want to choose the open in browser option. This is important because the field app will take whatever location you're currently at and it'll enter your data for that point. So you can't go in and change it from your home computer to the lake that you monitored. So you'll click open in browser. It'll take you to the observation form. You'll have to allow location services in your browser, which should pop up right in this location, or if you use a Windows, it might be a little bit different. Once it finds me at home, I'm just going to zoom out and say that I was monitoring Violin Lake near my home and trail. Perfect. And then I'll zoom in to my sampling location, and then it'll find my location right there, save my coordinates, and then I can carry on entering my data. If you are entering data after the fact, you'll just need to make sure that the data collection date is correct and that you mark down the time of your data collection that you put on your card. So those are just some helpful tips there. There's also our photo section. You can only enter the maximum amount of photos. So if it gives you an alert that the photos are invalid, that just means that you probably entered too many photos. So you'll just have to choose the best 4. Fantastic. So let me just move this down here so I can see my slides. Perfect. Okay, well, I hope that helped. We're also going to be creating a more detailed video that we'll be sending out to our volunteers, hopefully soon, that'll go into a little bit more detail for data entry. So if you need any help entering data, you can please reach out to me at lakeblitz@livinglakescanada.ca, and we'll be happy to assist you. Even if that means scheduling a quick phone call to go through it together, we're here to support you, and we really appreciate all the data you've collected. So we are always looking to grow our network of lake monitoring stewards. So if you aren't currently registered, please email us at that same email, lakeblitz@livinglakescanada.ca, and we'll add you to our email list for next year's registration, which will be opening around March. So we're looking really to increase our numbers in areas like Atlantic Canada and in Northern Canada as well, and in Prairie provinces. So we really want to get a good representation of lake health across Canada. So if you are in any of these areas, definitely recommend considering signing up. Perfect. Wonderful. So with all that said, I'd like to now welcome our first speaker, Marie Mccallum. Marie holds a degree in environmental science from UBC and has always had a love and a passion for protecting and exploring nature. She grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, so did I, and spent much of her youth exploring the Rocky Mountains. After moving to Vancouver for school, Marie fell in love with BC and has spent the past 6 years hiking, climbing, biking, and camping around the province. Marie's love for the natural world has been enhanced by her work as project assistant with the BC Lake Stewardship Society, where she gets to connect with volunteers around the province who are stewarding lakes to keep them clean and healthy for years to come. We're so excited to learn more about your work, Marie, and the work of BC Lake Stewardship Society. So with that, I'll pass it along to you to share your screen.
Okay, can you see that okay?
Looks good.
Great. Hello, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Camille. As Camille mentioned, I am the project assistant with the BC Lake Stewardship Society, and I am excited to tell you a little bit about what we do and to introduce some limnology basics. Thanks very much to Living Lakes Canada for inviting us to present. And my coworker Dawn is also on this call, and she'll be putting some links in the chat throughout the presentation. Before I begin, I want to acknowledge that the lake stewardship activities of our staff, directors, and volunteers take place on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of First Nations peoples throughout British Columbia. We recognize that Indigenous peoples have stewarded these lands and waters for generations, and we are grateful to the elders, traditional knowledge keepers, and youth that implement their knowledge and traditional laws to preserve water and life for the benefit of all. Today, I am joining you from the unceded and traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. For today's presentation, I will start with an introduction to the BC Lake Stewardship Society and some of our programs, and then I will dive into some water quality parameters and limnology. So the BCLSS is a registered nonprofit society dedicated to the preservation and protection of BC lakes. The BCLSS was started in 1997, and this is actually our 25th anniversary. Our society consists of lakeshore residents, community groups, students, government, and environmental professionals. Our membership base includes 66 groups encompassing more than 2,500 people. We also have 41 individual members, 10 families, and 6 students. And we are an affiliate of the North American Lake Management Society. And we promote and run their programs, including Lakes Appreciation Month and the annual Secchi Dip-In for BC. Our mission is to act as a resource, communication, and information network among scientists, environmental professionals, lakeshore residents, First Nations, government agencies, and the general public in order to preserve, protect, and restore lakes in British Columbia. Slide. Okay, there we go. Some of the benefits our members receive are our quarterly newsletters, our monthly e-news, which everyone can subscribe to, and Don will be putting the link for that in the chat, discount on conference fees, assistance from one of our local regional directors and BCLSS staff, and if there is interest in monitoring a lake in BC, members will receive training, equipment, insurance, and a report on lake data after 3 years. If you would like to learn more about membership with the BCLSS, Don has also put a link to our website in the chat. So we have 13 board members representing all regions throughout British Columbia. Our directors are made up of consultants, government staff, and stewardship group representatives. One of our main programs is the BC Lake Stewardship and Monitoring Program. This program was launched in 2003 in collaboration with the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy. Under this program, volunteers are provided with training, equipment, and support to facilitate the collection of water quality data and observations from lakes in BC. The program is unique in that it gives dedicated volunteers the knowledge and tools to become stewards of their favorite lake. It also promotes community-based involvement and extensive collaboration efforts. After 3 years of monitoring, the data collected by volunteers from each lake will be summarized into a peer-reviewed lake-specific report. We do 3 years of data collection because of the natural climate variability between years, and this provides us with a more representative data set. The lake reports are reader-friendly and will describe the trends in the lake parameters that were monitored. The report will also provide the residents and seasonal users of the lakes with an idea of potential changes in water quality and will identify any problems associated with these changes. So this program includes 5 different levels of monitoring, and the level of monitoring that is chosen is based on the volunteer commitment, the resources available to the region, and specific concerns for the lake itself. We currently manage all provincial level 1 programs, while the Ministry of Environment manages all higher level programs. So for a level 1 program, volunteers monitor water clarity and surface temperature, and it may also include regular temperature and dissolved oxygen profiles. I will now begin touching on the importance of measuring some of these parameters. So I'll start with water clarity. Water clarity is a measure of visibility from lake surface to depth, and it varies from lake to lake and seasonally. It is determined by how much light is able to penetrate into the water. Water clarity is affected by many factors, including nutrient inputs, algae, organic coloration of water from decomposing plant material, erosion and glacial melt, and also the recirculation of bottom sediments from wind action and boating. We ask our volunteers to note if they observe anything unusual when they are out sampling, such as different colored water or algae, as these comments can really help us when we are interpreting the data. So how is water clarity measured? We use a Secchi disc to do this. The Secchi disc is black and white, and it is attached to a tape measure. Readings are taken between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., and as this is when the sun is usually at an optimal angle. Contrary to the picture here, sunglasses should not be worn when taking the reading. As previously mentioned, a minimum of 12 readings is required to capture seasonal variations during each year of monitoring. So I will quickly go over what the procedure is to take a Secchi disc measurement. The first step is to lower the disc on the shady side of the boat, and you lower it until it just disappears. You would record that number and then slowly raise the disc until it is just visible again and record that number. The average of these two values is the Secchi depth. You would then record the weather, such as cloud cover and precipitation, wind speed, and surface conditions, and any other observations while you're out on the water. Here are some examples of what the Secchi disc may look like in different water conditions. Noting any observations such as water color, smell, plant, or algae growth is very helpful, as we don't have the lake in front of us when we are interpreting the data. So natural variation and trends in Secchi depth and temperature not only occur between years, but also throughout one season. This is why we do 3-year programs and why it is very important that the minimum number of 12 readings are met throughout one season and that they are evenly spread. Some of our volunteers have been collecting data for many, many years, providing us with excellent and accurate data sets, which allows us to observe trends, as you can see here. So this graph shows us the minimum, mean, and maximum Secchi depth each year between 1996 and 2021 for Bridge Lake. After performing a statistical analysis of the data, we were able to confirm that there is a decreasing trend in mean Secchi depth. So in other words, water clarity has been decreasing since 1996. This tells us that there is something affecting water clarity and additional monitoring is required to determine the cause. Another very important water quality parameter is dissolved oxygen. So dissolved oxygen is the amount of O2 molecules that are dissolved into the water. The amount of O2 that is dissolved in a lake depends on several factors, including the mixing that occurs during the overturn of a lake, the amount of wind action a lake experiences, the temperature of the lake, number of plants that are photosynthesizing in the lake, and other daily fluctuation patterns. So how does temperature affect dissolved oxygen? Well, cooler water can hold more oxygen than warmer waters. The warmer the water, the more molecular vibrations there will be, reducing the amount of space available between water molecules. Cooler water is more dense than warmer water, and the dissolved oxygen molecules stay trapped in between these water molecules. This is why it is important to take temperature readings with dissolved oxygen measurements. So why do we measure dissolved oxygen? Well, in a bigger sense, oxygen is the limitation to aquatic life, as it is essential to survival for most organisms. It's also important to monitor because BC has guidelines around dissolved oxygen concentrations to protect freshwater aquatic life. And dissolved oxygen has a large effect on water chemistry and nutrient cycling. For example, under conditions where oxygen is abundant, a nutrient called phosphorus is bound to the lake sediment on minerals such as iron and calcium. When oxygen is reduced in the lake, that phosphorus is released, and that can lead to internal loading and algal blooms. We will learn more about phosphorus shortly. There are several methods used to measure dissolved oxygen. You can use dissolved oxygen meters. There's the colorimetric method and titration. The BCLSS recommends using a YSI Pro Solo, which is pictured here, as data can be collected more quickly and it provides very reliable data. So to understand how dissolved oxygen is distributed throughout a lake, you also need to understand the thermal properties of water, such as stratification and lake turnover. Oxygen concentrations and cycling are mainly dependent on the thermal stratification patterns, which are seasonally variable. So in the summer, as surface waters are warming, the lake will begin to stratify, separating into 3 layers that do not mix. So we have the epilimnion, the upper layer, the thermocline, which is the middle layer here, and the hypolimnion. During summer, density differences due to water temperature act as a barrier to complete mixing of the lake, which deprives this bottom layer of oxygen. Here we have an example of a temperature profile in the summer. You can see that the top layer, the epilimnion, is comprised of relatively warm, well-mixed water. The thermocline, this middle layer here, is defined by a temperature change of at least 1 degree Celsius per vertical meter. And as you go down into the hypolimnion, you will find a uniformly cold and relatively undisturbed layer of water. So this graph looks very similar, but this one is showing dissolved oxygen profile for a relatively productive lake in the summer. So this top layer is in contact with the atmosphere, therefore oxygen is abundant here during stratification, but it is not available to these lower layers. As organic matter from plants and other organisms dies and sinks, it is decomposed by organisms, and this process consumes oxygen. So as the water down lower in the lake does not receive a resupply of oxygen throughout the summer, we see a sharp decrease in the deeper waters. With climate warming, it is becoming increasingly important to document dissolved oxygen temperature in lakes, as they are incredibly sensitive to changes in climate. By taking profiles of a lake, it may be possible to detect changes to the depth of the thermocline or changes in the time of lake turnover, which can have significant effects on how dissolved oxygen and nutrients are distributed in a lake. It is important that we are proactive so that we can better predict how lakes throughout BC will respond. The more lakes that provide temperature and dissolved oxygen data, the more data points there will be for different regions, so that steps can be taken to mitigate impacts or provide information in advance of an extreme shift. I'll quickly go over the procedure for taking a dissolved oxygen and temperature profile with a meter. So the first step is to measure the depth at the sampling site with the Secchi disc or a depth sounder. Next, the probe is lowered over the side of the boat or the dock, and dissolved oxygen and temperature are measured at the surface. The probe is then lowered and measurements are taken every meter until the probe is 1 meter above the lake sediment. Lastly, we will learn a little bit about phosphorus. So phosphorus is a naturally occurring element that is the limiting nutrient in plant and algae production. Total phosphorus can be greatly influenced by human activities, and in excess, it can accelerate plant growth and artificially age a lake. There is a strong correlation between biological production and phosphorus in lakes. In most temperate zone lakes, phosphorus is in shorter supply and therefore limits plant growth. The level of productivity of a lake depends on the amount of nutrients available for plant growth, and this is determined by measuring the biological productivity. So as I mentioned, humans can have a significant impact on the amount of nutrients that are in a water body. Some anthropogenic sources of phosphorus include septic systems, agriculture, lawn fertilizers, and soil erosion from forestry and development, as well as other practices. So how do we know that phosphorus is a limiting nutrient in lake productivity? Back in the 1970s, scientists partitioned off a lake in northwestern Ontario. So phosphorus, nitrogen, and carbon were added to one basin, this basin here in the back. And just nitrogen and carbon were added to the other basin. All other variables are the same between the two basins. Within 2 months, the far basin in the picture was covered with a dense algal bloom. No increases in algae or species changes were observed in this closed basin. Okay, coming to the end here. I know that was a lot of information in a short amount of time. Thank you for listening. If you want to learn more about limnology and stewardship, you can download a copy of our recently updated Lake Keepers Manual for free at the link that Dawn is putting in the chat. The Lake Keepers Manual is a comprehensive guide to lake stewardship and monitoring of lakes. It helps readers understand the basic lake function and covers topics such as starting a stewardship group, water quality fundamentals, developing a lake sampling program, and more. So here is a list of the topics covered in the manual. We also offer a 1.5-day Lake Keepers training course that provides participants with a greater understanding of lake ecology and health. There is 1 day in the field, or 1 day in the classroom, and then a half day in the field, and participants gain hands-on experience in water quality monitoring. We are currently developing a course aimed towards environmental professionals that will be certified by our highly qualified board of directors. This will be a 3-day course providing an in-depth overview of lake ecology and lake monitoring. Participants will be assessed on their knowledge throughout the course, and a certificate will be issued upon successful completion. Stay tuned for future updates. We have been offering the Lake Keepers Workshop since 2009, thanks to our generous partners and funders, the Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation, the Real Estate Foundation of BC, the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy, and the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Thank you for listening. If you would like to stay up to date on our activities, you can give us a follow on Instagram or Facebook, or visit our website. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Maria, for that great presentation and such a easy, digestible, beginner info on these parameters that we keep hearing about. Dissolved oxygen. What is it? That was super helpful. So thanks for walking us through that. And the Lake Keepers Manual is just an amazing resource. I've sent it out to our Lake Blitz volunteers in the past. It is BC focused, but there are some, very like standard bits of knowledge in there for anybody who's wanting to go a bit deeper in lake stewardship. So I definitely think people from all across Canada could benefit from taking a look at the Lake Keepers Manual. It is really great. So thank you so much for that. I'm just going to share my screen, and just a reminder, if anyone has any questions that are coming up, you can just pop them in the chat. A lot of them do come in the question period, of course, but if you don't want to lose a thought, then that's a good thing to do. Just pop it right in there. So that's great. I'd like to now welcome Bonnie and Teresa from the New Brunswick Alliance of Lake Associations. Bonnie Hoyt-Hallett has been the chair of the Yoho Lake Monitoring Committee for 7 years and an active member of the New Brunswick Alliance of Lake Associations since its inception. Her background as Deputy Minister of Environment and Local Government has made her keenly aware of the need to preserve our lake's health. She's also a summer resident of Yoho Lake and mother of 3 sons who grew up around its shores. And she is committed to ensuring the lake is there to enjoy for future generations to come. And I just love where Bonnie's seated right now with the camper in the back, sun shining on her. It's just fantastic. Teresa is originally from Woodstock, New Brunswick. She grew up on the shores of Skiff Lake. Since retiring from a career in health sciences education in 2016, she has been living full-time at Skiff Lake. Teresa is the president of the New Brunswick Alliance of Lake Associations, and she is a member of the Healthy Lake Committee. Teresa enjoys boating, rug hooking, carpentry, and spending time on the porch. That sounds amazing. What a great way to spend your time. So Bonnie will be our speaker presenter for the next bit of presentation here. And I'll be navigating through their amazing and beautiful website and giving you, she'll be giving you some more information. And Teresa will be piping up if there's anything else that she'd like to mention. So I'm just going to navigate to the website and welcome, Bonnie to let me know where she'd like me to start. Oh, looks like you're muted, Bonnie.
I wanted to say thank you to Maria, and I can't move from here with no sun's on me because I'm plugged into electricity back here, and if I move my laptop's not got enough power in it right now, so apologize if that's distracting. I want to thank Maria very much because that is an excellent presentation, and I can see us benefiting from that for those that are monitoring within our association, because sometimes we do the do part, but we don't understand the why part, and that was very helpful. So thank you very much, and that will be well used by us. So if you can just click up in the top corner there of who we are, Camille, and come down to the part that says about. No, up at the top.
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. So basically what I'm going to go over is sort of how we got started, who we are and whatever. We are truly volunteers. Basically this started from 5 lakes that got together in the central part of New Brunswick and wanted to share best practices. Not even thinking too much about lake monitoring at the time. We were just wondering, how do you get people around the lake to understand lake stewardship? So we started meeting, and then we got connected for various reasons, and you can see from my background how that might have happened, to the environmental Department of Environment. It was Department of Environment and Local Government at the time, and they really wanted us to establish a lake monitoring program. So that it evolved from that. So our priority is stewardship, monitoring, environmental management, and educating communities to make sure we maintain the health of our lakes. So Camille, if you can just scan down from there. So it was established in 2013, and 2013 was when we came together as NBALA. So we started out as a group of 5 sharing ideas, and then we thought we need some structure. So we developed a structure, a constitution, Still not much in the way of funding. The Department of Environment and Local Government did provide some funding at the start. And when we got into lake monitoring, they started providing the monies through what we have is an environmental trust fund. And we made application through it. We were successful. And we got a number of monitoring equipment, a number of packages for monitoring equipment. But we only had enough to share. So for in our example, we had it 1 week and then we met up with the lake next door and we gave it to them next week. The next year we got a few more, and now everyone has their own monitoring equipment. All of the things that Marie spoke about, we do, plus a few more, which I'll describe here a little bit later. And we've grown from 5 to 13. So the 2013 was when the group was just informal, became more formal, and began to really get into the lake monitoring. And again, if you can just scroll down a bit. So I think this is, just go up a little bit. I think this is, a thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It is wrong when it tends otherwise. So that's sort of a little bit of a motto that we have in our group. If you can go back to that dot at the top there and go on to another screen, Camille. And this one is in under volunteer. Just click on volunteer.
Perfect.
So as I say, and just scroll down a little bit, we are purely a volunteer organization. Each lake has its own association, and those associations are a member of the collective New Brunswick Alliance of Lake Associations. So each lake association is committed to monitoring water quality and promoting healthy lake ecosystems and environmental management. And we have, as I says here, 5, now we've grown since then to 13. Each volunteer is trained and they collect samples bi-weekly. They submit the results of those to the Department of Environment and Local Government, who has a data portal. And if anybody are interested in the data that is there, we can share the data portal where you can go and see the data that we've been collecting since 2012 when we started as a group of 5. So we collect the data bi-weekly, and we combine those things. And on the line, we have Aaron Fraser. And Aaron, partway through between then and now, has started now for the NBALA doing temperature. We didn't initially do water temperature. He puts in water temperature probes in each of our lake, collects the information, compiles it, and removes those probes each year on our behalf. And it's adding another component of information that we just didn't have. Like everywhere else, we're getting more increases in temperature, more impacts of climate change, and changes in our water level. So it's more and more important that we are continuing to do this. One thing we're missing, and we are adding to our group this year, is someone to gather all this information that we've been collecting over time and turn it into something readable, understandable for our monitors and also for our lakeshore residents. So we are having somebody that is doing that for 9 of our 13 lakes who have been longer standing in our group and have an abundance of data. And he will be taking that information and changing it into a profile of those 9 lakes. And we're really looking for that, because education of our residents is critical. We have just applied at Yoho Lake through an environmental trust fund for shoreline restoration. We also at the same time had a large piece of land at the end of our lake that was subdivided. And one of the purchasers of that land came in and cut everything right down to the shoreline and mulched it all up. Didn't understand what that was doing. And we just got $8,500 to do shoreline protection. And in the blink of an eye on one lot, they wiped a whole shoreline of a lot out. So we are constantly trying to educate people as new people come around the lake. And as people change, we're continuing to do that. So the Volunteer Lake Monitoring Program was the initial focus of NBALA, but it is not the only focus of NBALA. And again, if you'd come, Camille, into something called resources at the top again. We've done a lot over the last bit, not only on lake monitoring. Okay, can you scan down from there? Is it opening for you?
To resources?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, it's linking there right now.
So the other thing we're doing, we tell people about their water course and wetland alteration permits, what they need to do to when they in order to protect the lake, and just kind of move down. We have a number of conferences which we put on, which has a number of speakers and partners that are there in order to explain again to our members and to the greater audience around our lakes why this is important. And we partnered with the Eastern Charlotte Waterways because they have hosted, and we actually purchase services from them and have an administrative one that's there, a person that's there. We've become very close with the New Brunswick Council of Invasive Species and that through the environmental network. And we are doing a lot on Eurasian milfoil because in our river, main river in this area, the St. John River, there is Eurasian milfoil, and we're trying to mitigate it being transported into any of our lakes. So we've also done what we call a clean, drain, dry program to let people understand they need to clean, drain, and dry their boats as they move them from one lake body to another. And we've also purchased through Environmental Trust Fund and with the you're going to have to help me here, Teresa. It's the we partnered in order to buy a boat wash station.
It's with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans.
Okay, with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. So we have a boat wash station which can go around to the various lakes which have fishing tournaments on them. So we try to educate and also wash the boats as they go in. You want to just scan down a little bit there, Camille?
Mm-hmm.
The New Brunswick Water Protection Strategy was developed by the Department of Environment and Local Government, and their focus is on water strategy and reporting. So the portal part of reporting has really started in the last couple of years in order to share that information and it to be there for researchers, not just for everybody, but researchers to go in and to be able to try to find some do some analysis on all the data that we've collected. As well, in this strategy, one of the things that we've done in there, which was not getting a whole lot of attention, had to do with septic systems around our lakes in New Brunswick. And some of you may be part of this, but around our lakes in New Brunswick, we have old septic systems. A lot of them are holes in the ground or containers in the ground or whatever. So we are not allowed around lakes to have a word's gone for me. Okay.
Holding tank.
Holding tanks. There we go. So we're not allowed to have holding tanks as a rule. So we've been working with Department of Environment and local government in order to do a survey across the country. And some of you may have participated in this to see what are the rules and regulations in various provinces around holding tanks. So we can see if we couldn't possibly get holding tanks under the proper rules, proper regulations, to those places who don't want to spend $17,000 to $20,000 because they're a summer resident, and they would go to change their system to a holding tank and partner with municipalities or rural communities to ensure they don't get punched, so nobody, has to worry about them just being used and drained. So we're doing work on septic systems as well in this last little while, and it's within the 10-year strategic plan. And for this year, it's now bumped up, and they actually have people working on it. So that's been very, very good for us, and has become another focus. And the other question is, how much development can a lake of a particular size sustain? So we've been again across country and into Maine to try to see what others have done on that. So we've grown a lot since water monitoring when we started, and we've started to branch out into other things that have to do with water quality. And phosphate-free has become a motto, and we've got many of our lakes have phosphate-free signs up, pushing phosphate-free in terms of people's use of products, which is easier now than it used to be. But watering, fertilizing, even your flower pot sitting on your deck, which is right over the water. So we're doing all that in order to try to educate our members. Okay, if you can go, and I'll just be almost done there. If you can go up to the dot again. And you can come down into membership.
Awesome.
So here we talk about the things that, and you did as Marie too, you made a list. What does being a member in the New Brunswick Alliance of Lake Associations give you? So there's educational materials. And again, if you can just pop down there a bit, there are workshops and programs that we do. There are, there's a commercial liability insurance, which we added this past year or so. And that allows us to give coverage to people who are on the lake doing testing or doing things for water quality. For example, somebody runs into somebody's dock and damages it, and they were there on water monitoring. That individual is protected. And the lake individuals who are doing things on behalf of the associations at the various lakes and NBALA have a commercial liability insurance. We also have a whole portfolio around influence, lobbying, and advocacy, and we meet routinely with the Department of Environment and Local Government and the various places there to talk to them about why this whole portfolio should continue to be important for them. We advocate for research. We are partners with a number of researchers. Right now we have Tim Patterson, who's doing a sediment trap research on a number of lakes. And we lobby with a number of researchers to get information out and to allow our data to be used for their research. So I think that's a little bit at a high level, and Teresa, feel free to join but in with anything else. But the important thing, I think, is that we started from 5 lakes, 5 individuals, got their associations to buy in, developed a framework, sold that to 13 others, and now we are growing in doing other things. So it's kind of, in our estimation, a little bit of a success story, and we're a little bit proud of where we were and where we've come from. Okay, that's it, Camille.
Fantastic. And yeah, I'll invite Teresa if she does have anything else to add. You can go right ahead.
We've got an echo here because we've got 2 laptops. I think, Bonnie, you did a great job in describing what our activities are. For the water monitoring, the goal of the Department of the Environment was to engage citizen science. And that's why they were interested in really supporting this endeavor to expand the volunteer water monitoring program. And the parameters that we measure for are dissolved oxygen, conductivity, pH, and temperature. And this year, we have initiated doing a spring and fall sample for phosphorus, nitrate, and chlorophyll A. So we'll now have a measure of the eutrophic capacity of the lakes. The lakes in New Brunswick are quite interesting because they're quite varied in their topology. Some of the lakes are quite deep and others are very shallow. Some of them have a granite bedrock and others are more sand. So when we get the luminology analysis done, it'll be interesting to compare across the different lakes of how we're doing in terms of the maintaining water quality and the health of the different lakes. Some of the lakes have had issues with algae bloom and others haven't. And so far, we have managed to just keep the milfoil in the river and not in the lakes, but it takes great diligence and real buy-in on the part of cottagers to appreciate the risk, which is so close at hand. And I think that's a pretty good synopsis of where we are and where we're headed in terms of trying to expand on some of these activities.
Thank you, Teresa. That's wonderful.
So that's it for me.
Oh, that's great. No, thank you so much for those additions and Bonnie for your amazing presentation. I feel like every time I hear the story of the New Brunswick Alliance of Lake Associations, I'm a bit gobsmacked just how successful it has been and that it has served as a model to get more lake stewardship groups involved and just doing some really amazing work for lakes in New Brunswick. It's so important. I really like that you were talking not only of the monitoring of lakes, but the importance of land or shoreline homeowner education. That's such a huge part, and you almost need two organizations to do both. So big kudos to these lake stewardship groups for doing this work, and it's great that they have a support from an organization like New Brunswick Alliance of Lake Associations. So.
It's been great that you've invited us. We've got a lot to learn from you guys, and I think this will be an ongoing partnership, and we'll learn a lot.
Mm-hmm. We're really looking forward to it as well. It's fantastic. So I'd just like to open up the floor to questions from our amazing audience today. If there's been any in the chat, Sophie, feel free to share those with us.
Yeah, there has been one question from Brad. The question is for Bonnie, and he's asking if you can expand a bit more on the septic system action that was part of the 10-year strategy of New Brunswick.
Okay, the environment and local government strategy, as I say, the septic system was part of it, but it wasn't one of the top priorities. So we kept pushing from NBALA, and we eventually got the attention so that we helped develop a cross-country survey that was sent out, and it's there now. They've had some change in personnel, so we weren't able to actually transfer that into a comparative document which does rules and regulations. That's the next step, and in September we're taking that document. We've asked for one of our lakes to maybe be a sample or a model, a pilot, because one of our lakes is in a rural community, different structure in New Brunswick. It's not a municipality, it's a little bit more rural, and they've just developed, and they're looking for other services to take on. And they may in fact be able to partner with that lake association through NBALA to do a program whereby they actually supervise what's happening for the pump outs, how often they're done, the installation and whatever. And it be based on a taxing process. Again, very preliminary. And what we're trying to do is learn for others that we know have got bits and pieces of that and see what we can pick and choose and put together. So that we would be able to change the things. Change the things around our lakes. Brad, I think that may answer that, and for sure we can. If anybody else has questions, and Brad's in our NBALA, I can also give detail to him offline.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. That's great. Yeah, so this taxing strategy will be interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing about that and this volunteer group that might take on some inspection, you're saying, or some actual quality control services on the pump outs. Is that correct?
I'm not sure it'll be volunteers much, Brad, as there may be an employee attached to the rural community that's supported through the taxation, whose job it is to go around. In some places, my understanding is, and again, we need to get into it better, but in some places, they actually know how many people are in that residence, what the volume should be, and they know therefore how often it should be pumped out. Other places, they come around and they pump it out anyway, whether you need it or not, 2 or 3 times a year, and it's paid for through the taxation. So, and people, have to sign up in order to get the septic tank put in, and then they become part of that program.
Okay, thank you very much, Bonnie.
Great question there. Great discussion. Thank you. Looks like we've got, not a question in the chat. So I do have one question for all of our speakers. So maybe I'll get Marie to answer first. So what is the biggest piece of advice you could give to someone who wanted to start monitoring their local lake?
Is that for me?
Maybe we'll give it to Marie first, and then I'll pop it to you, Bonnie. Thanks.
I think the first step would be to check and see if there's already a stewardship group that's active in the area. If not, then I would maybe talk to some of your neighbors and see if it's something they're interested in. The more people that are on board, the easier it is to support a monitoring program. And then from there, you can always reach out to us, or there are other groups in each province, like the NBALA, and Alberta has one. I think all provinces have a pretty strong group like ours, who would be able to help you get set up with something, or reach out to Living Lakes Canada. They have lots of connections all over the province. Yeah. That's
great. Thanks. And that's a great answer. Thank you, Marie. And Bonnie, would you like to answer? I can repeat the question. It's what is the
It's okay.
You're good.
I think that the best thing to do is to find some passionate people around the lake who care about their lake, and who have an interest in making sure that it's preserved for generations to come. And if you can capture their interest, then you're away sailing. So I think that part of what you need to do, when we've reached out to other lakes, we've done a presentation about why it should be important, and what we can do and what we are doing as an association. And then often, since we make those presentations, the group just buys in, and they become members and they want to monitor. But the first step is usually to identify why they should care, what is available, what we do, and what others are doing, and usually it goes from there.
That's great. Thank you, Bonnie. And Teresa, did you have anything to add to that at all?
We've got 2 laptops here, so my sister had to run outside so we wouldn't have the echo. No, I think that as I agree with Bonnie. I think that the most important thing is having people that care and are passionate, and somebody has to be the messenger. But I think that people listen to the message when they feel that people are really engaged, and they have a sense that their actions will have some effect. And I think that's my take-home message.
That's great, Teresa. Thank you. That's really one of the goals of the Lake Blitz, is to be that that foot in the door to monitoring to get people interested. And then we always are encouraging people to connect with their local stewardship group and, do a bit more, like learn how to use some of these sensors and probes. And there's so many organizations out there that are doing good work. It's just a struggle sometimes to find them, especially when you're new to all of this. So that's something we're really hoping to do, is to help people navigate the world of water stewardship. And the only way we're able to do that is by building partnerships with organizations like NBALA and BC Lake Stewardship Society and Alberta Lake Management Society. So we're really hoping to strengthen those relationships and then learn more about other groups, because like I said, it's vast. That's wonderful. Well, we're waiting for maybe other questions to pop up in the chat. I do have another one, unless either Sophie or Dawn or anyone else has questions.
Well, there are 2 questions in the chat.
Oh, great.
I can read them. So we have one question from Barb related to the dissolved O2 in the water. So our question is, are you able to provide a sample of the water depth relative to stratification when speaking about the dissolved O2? So maybe Marie can answer this question.
Sure. So the depth of stratification depends on several factors. There's not really one depth that is the same across all lakes. Every lake is different, and that depends a lot on how much light is able to penetrate, because that will give us an idea of how much of the surface water is able to warm up. So the more eutrophic or productive a lake, maybe the less clear it is. So that will have a shallower thermocline, so maybe a couple meters. A clearer lake that is more oligotrophic, not as productive, will have a deeper thermocline.
So maybe a little follow-up question on that. What would be the technique to assess the stratification?
So we would use the dissolved oxygen and temperature profiles that I was mentioning, and our volunteers that do the profiles do them every 2 weeks or every week throughout the summer. So you can actually see how that thermocline changes as the water starts to warm. And it is very different for every lake.
Perfect, thank you. And we have another question also from Paul. He says, our society on Vancouver Island is interested in long-term data for eutrophic lakes. And how can we get this data?
If you have specific lakes in mind.
I don't know, Paul, if you want to turn on your microphone and ask your question directly to be a bit more specific.
I can do that. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, it's perfect.
All right. Yeah. Here in the Cowichan Valley, we have a highly eutrophic lake, a Salmonous lake, and we've been monitoring it for some time. But we're interested in other lakes to see longer term trends. I think one of the things we're interested in is to see whether there are any examples of where trend to higher eutrophic levels has been reversed, where conditions might have improved. So we could look at that, a lake like that, as an example of things that could be done here, rather than seeing a decade after decade degradation of the water quality. How can that be reversed? Is there anything that has been done in Canada to help in that regard? I know it's a very difficult question. There's many lakes like this around the world, but that's kind of where we're thinking at the moment.
I can try to answer that. Dawn, you may have to add on to this, but one good resource is the BC Lake Monitoring Program, and I'll put a link to that in the chat. So this has all the volunteer monitored lakes in BC. Not only volunteer, but the lakes monitored by the province. So the data is all on there. and you can navigate to lakes in that region. You can also check on our website in our library. We do have a number of lake reports for some lakes on the island. I'm not sure about eutrophic ones specifically. But yeah, Dawn, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, we have some older lake reports written at Quamachin and Somenos lakes. I know there's a number of lakes in northern BC. They're also looking into, you know, how to make the lakes less eutrophic. So really, it's pretty involved with a watershed study as well. So that's sort of a higher level program that would be done with the ministry and with local government as well.
Yeah, I can give you an example. Here up in the Cowichan Valley, the Canadian national rowing team was recently relocated from Elk Lake near Victoria because of various issues down there, including high algae levels in the summer. They've moved up to Quamachin Lake in this valley, which also is eutrophic and has high algae levels in the summer, not quite as bad as Elk Lake. So we're just wondering, well, is the trend that Quamachin Lake is going to get worse? Will Somenos Lake get worse? And then will the rowing center have to relocate again? They're always seeking lakes that they can do their rowing in, or looking for good conditions. It's kind of an ongoing problem. But anyway, Quamachin Lake, they have some money and they are proposing to do various things, oxygenate the lake, put some kind of chemicals down to trap the phosphorus and so on. But in Somenos Lake, we don't have those kind of options, but we're just interested in what's happened in other places. I realize there's quite a bit of academic material that we could research from university studies and so on, but I thought perhaps you would have some good ideas as to where we might access this kind of information. But the link here, I see the link, and I'll look at that in more depth and see what I can see there.
Maybe Bonnie has something to add on that. Maybe this situation was one of the one they encounter in their lake monitoring. Bonnie, you're on mute.
We have a lot of data, but we've not analyzed it well. And because we just got the government portal kind of up, so we can start doing some of that cross-reference. So in order to, I mean, I heard the question basically, has anyone done anything to turn anything around? I guess mainly what we're doing is to preserve what we have and to maintain where we are. We haven't done anything really to turn things around, and I can't reference anything in our data that would show something. Now the portal is now open so that it can be accessed, and hopefully we will have more people looking at it that may be able to answer it. But that's a loaded question, Paul, and I don't think I'm qualified or feel we have that information. Teresa, you might want to add something.
No, I don't have anything more to add, Bonnie.
Well, Paul, as you, I guess, go through and do some more research and look at some resources, if you come across anything, please keep us in the loop. We'd love to see how the project is going. And then if, as you're going down this road, like, and you want to reach out for any other resources, feel free to reach out to us for support, and we'll hopefully have something happening for you as well. It sounds like a really exciting, worthwhile project.
Okay, I'll keep you updated. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so we have come to the end here. So I'd just like to thank everybody so much for your amazing presentations and for all of your questions. If there's anything that you'd like to follow up with us after the meeting. You can reach out to me, Lake Blitz at livinglakescanada.ca, and I can make any connections between anybody or answer any questions. After this, we'll be sending out the recording. So if you'd like to listen again or access any of the resources that have been mentioned through the meeting, then those will be sent out after the fact. So again, thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your summer. If you're out monitoring, we're excited to see your data coming in, or if you're just enjoying your lake, we love seeing lake photos. So you can always send that kind of stuff in and we can celebrate the lakes in Canada.
So thank you for the work you do, and thanks for connecting us. I'm sure all this connection will result in great things.
100%. It usually does. So that's fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day.